Hello, Scorpio. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. All right, Scorp. So some of you are done in a really big way with dealing with situations that are not making you happy. So from lay vampire, rebellion, upstart, tumult, and revolution. And then from chakra, wisdom, complacency. I love rebellion because it talks about how you're being called to follow your own soul's path now, and how it's a wonderful thing that you know who you truly are. And it's asking you to be truthful about who you really are and what you're really wanting to create in your life. And it's not like you're looking to cause a scene with rebellion. It's just you're done. You're done. And when you're looking at complacency, I think some of you may be done with not just situations, but people too. Complacency is a warning not to give up. It says, beware of coasting along in a situation that is not what you really want. You will never be fulfilled by the unmet dreams of others. And that's where I feel like, people may be involved in this. And I think for some of you, you've done this for far too long. And I do like seeing rebellion next to it, but I worry about complacency. Now, the card at a glance says that life force energy must be taken seriously. Are you standing tall in your own dreams or trying to build on someone else's? Sadness and an inability to disassociate from a lost dream can show up here. It is time to walk away from anything that does not deeply resonate with you. Release and be free. That to me is the most important part about this card. All right, Scorp, here we go. Here's your overall for the week. Oh boy. Okay, so now, for some of you, this is simply your energy right now, with the King of Cups being the overall. I'm being a little bit more emotionally distant. And I say that because I always look at the Queen of Cups as being Scorpio, being too emotionally involved in shit. Getting better control over your emotions, but you could be definitely dealing with a person here, possibly another water sign, but we will see. We will see how this King of Cups is playing out. Okay, so in the past, the Hierophant. I always get different feelings when it comes to this one. The Hierophant as the past, you may have been doing things a certain way, but I wonder if that's changing. Because these two to me are opposing. And not in a bad way, it's just the Hierophant is more like, conforming, right? And then I look at rebellion and think, nope. Now, we could definitely be talking about major commitments here and things changing as far as that goes, or you wanting to make a new commitment with the Hierophant. For some of you, it's about, knowledge, a higher understanding, right? I've always said when it comes to the Hierophant, him ruling the fives, it reminds me of what people would do back in the day when crazy shit would happen. They would go and seek God, and that's where the Hierophant would come in. Better spiritual understanding. In the present, the Two of Wands. So if you are looking to make a major commitment or to change a major commitment, whatever is happening here with the Hierophant after whatever changes you've been through, I still think you're not conforming anymore. I feel like things are changing, especially with what's going on emotionally. With the Two of Wands being in the present moment, you're looking at what action to take. You're planning on doing something here. If we're talking about a person, there may have been a commitment in the past, but then things may be changing. But, again, you're still looking at what direction you need to go in here with the Two of Wands. And, of course, I'm always waiting to see what's happening here. Shit. All right. So, future conditions, the Nine of Swords, you're not really acting. You're in your head way, way too much. With the Nine of Swords, you're way overthinking it. This must be like a really, a major commitment that some of you may be wanting to make here. And like I said, it could possibly do with a person. But man, it's almost like before you even act on something, you're calling it before it even happens, but yet you're still dealing with all of the torturous thoughts, right? And you have to be careful. You have to be careful about where that leads you, because this is what you're doing to yourself right now. I think that initially, you have plans to act, but I don't think that you follow through. I think that you kind of like sabotage yourself here before anything even happens. Your best path to follow, the Four of Pentacles. Now, what I feel like is that some of you, obviously, you're withholding something here, but you may be withholding something as far as what you're thinking and feeling. And, I hesitate on saying this, because normally I look at the Four of Pentacles and go, who the hell am I to tell anybody that they need to let go of some shit? I mean, like, I know what that feels like, to hold on to things. Like, not wanting to let it go. Because with the Four of Pentacles, no matter how you're looking at it, it's about somebody who is trying to maintain the stability that they have, right? Now, in this situation, you're talking about stability, if I could talk right, for Christ's sakes. Stability that has been kept in the way that you've been thinking, but it's negative. And that's my problem. And I say that because you're not acting. You haven't acted, and you're not going to. And it may be that, you're withholding something from somebody, mentally or emotionally. And maybe you need to look at where you feel like your stability actually is. A lot of times with the Four of Pentacles, you'll see in some decks, people are like trapped. They're like trapped with the things that they're trying to keep, Is it really worth withholding? I mean, with the King of Cups still being the overall, regardless, if you're dealing with a person or not, I do feel like the energy is going to apply here, and you needing to get control over what you're feeling. Because your thoughts are like blocking you. And I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this isn't something that you should be withholding anymore. In your environment, the Eight of Wands, I think, because here's the thing, you still haven't acted. When you're talking about the Eight of Wands connected to this, it could definitely be talking about communication. You thinking about needing to say something, right? Or thinking about doing something quickly, but you don't. If you did, you wouldn't be looking at these two back to back. And then for some of you, you may have made like a major commitment a little bit too quickly. And you may be thinking about what you're going to do now for you, especially with the Oracle cards being there. But I don't think that you do. Like, I'm not feeling like you actually do. It's like you're holding yourself back. But, with the Eight of Wands, again, it's like wanting things to pick up pace, like quickly doing something. And again, communication, though, could be possible here. Oh my God. Your hopes and your fears. And this, these two alone, it's huge. So the reason why I think some of you have not acted on something here is because, your thoughts have you in this place where you're fearing that, if you stop withholding and you finally release, that it's going to be the end of the situation. Like it could end it for good. Now, for some of you, you're done with the death cycle and you're hoping for, the rebirth, right? But something being over with in a really big way. And I worry that some of you are not releasing it, or fearing that you're not going to be able to accept the fact that a situation is going to be over with. But is it really, though? Because you're talking about hopes and fears here, and I'm looking at you all up in your head, overthinking everything. But that, to me, is more of a fear, I feel like. you know. And if we're talking about a person, whatever, little stability that you have gained in terms of dealing with them, you're afraid to change it. And that's basically it, because it could completely end the situation. But with the Hierophant being there, again, it's a major commitment that you have either made or you're still wanting to make. But I don't know. I still feel like you're not wanting to conform anymore though either, right? But then you're not really stepping up to the plate. And I hate to say it that way, but and then coming out the High Priestess, do you just bottle this shit up and then never say anything? Or are you actually going to pay attention to your intuition here? But again, hidden information, right? Hidden. It's all in your mind. Okay. So when we're talking about the High Priestess with this situation here, the way that I'm seeing it, whether we're talking about, a person or not here, I do think that you are dealing with a person because of the Two of Cups showing up. But, needing to be in better control of your emotions. You're wanting to act, but you don't. I'm telling you, between these two, you're not doing shit. You're thinking way too much about the situation. You're afraid that, this stability, what little bit that you've gained is going to change. But then not only that, but I do think that some of you are holding on too much to what is going on in your mind. It's like you see it playing out before it actually happens. And like I said, with death being there, that's, yeah. With the Five of Pentacles, to me, this is because we're talking about what's going on with you and you blocking your own intuition out here and keeping things bottled up. I think that this is about a fear of being rejected, right? With Temperance, you kind of move into a place here where you start getting a little bit more balanced, or you're like desperately needing it right now and needing to pay attention to the guidance that is surrounding you rather than letting your thoughts sabotage what could be, a good thing. Because with the Two of Cups coming out, I mean, even if we're not talking about another person here, it could be just like a really good fit for you in terms of like what you're wanting to act on. Okay. But, right, it is the bonding of two people. We are talking about a relationship here. And again, doesn't have to be romantic, but it makes sense to me that if we're talking about a person, we're talking about a relationship, that there would be this major stuff going on here. And I think that some of you are just wanting to move through this like right now. And because things are not happening right now, you're like bottling everything up. Like seriously bottling everything up. And with Temperance being there, man, and it makes sense to me. But this is big. I mean, that's really a big fear there, and it could definitely block you. And maybe you do need to just shh for a minute and just think and pay attention to your intuition. Let it open up. Let it guide you into what you need to do here in terms of this. Because there is a lot of things surrounding one person. But I still do think that with the King of Cups, it's you needing to get control over your own emotions. Okay, holy crap, Scorp. But then I look at the Oracle cards and I think, what is the situation that you're in right now that you feel like you've been complacent in for a long time? Is that why you're wanting things to change quickly? Yeah, I feel... I feel a little bit iffy on that, but we'll get into that. Okay, so first for singles, when we're looking at codependency with the Two of Wands, you're talking about two people that are getting to know each other, which is great. And really, it's you not going into new relationships feeling like you need to be, dependent on them, especially emotionally. That, or, being careful about the people that you're attracting. Either way here, with the Two of Wands, whoever it is that you're meeting right now, you need to take time to actually get to know them. And this is good, because there's flirting going on. There is obviously a connection. But, it doesn't have to be a situation where you need to be like emotionally dependent on them. But then also, be careful about who you're attracting. But I think that this has more so to do with you. And I say that because of this. Now, for those of you who are in a relationship, this could be the one. And then you have the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is about overcoming feelings of inadequacy. But, you're talking about situations that maybe you shouldn't be getting involved in, which is possible for some of you. Now, for some, right, you're meeting the one and you're getting over feeling like you're not good enough, right? That doesn't matter anymore. You're totally giving into each other, which is great. But, I get kind of iffy when it comes to this one, just because we are talking about the Five of Swords here, right? But that's only going to be for some of you. But Scorp, God damn it. Stop doing that to yourself. I don't like it when the Nine of Swords shows up for anybody, but this to me is you doing this to yourself. I don't so much feel like this has to do with somebody intentionally making you feel this way, because you're looking to take action, but you don't. So to me, this is like sabotage. You're doing this to yourself. And nobody should ever have to feel that way or think that way, right? Pay attention to your intuition. It's your most powerful gift. And it will guide you in the right direction when it comes to what you're wanting to do in terms of relationships. All right, Scorp. So there is a lot riding on this situation, but it's like all in your mind. And some of you are way overthinking things and just totally killing a situation before it even happens, it feels like. So now, as far as rebellion and complacency, it makes me wonder, looking at this reading, if you're actually doing it. I think some of you have been in situations where you've been unhappy for quite some time. And you are being asked to rebel and not give in to this. But, I worry about what's going on here. Now, like I said, with the King of Cups being the overall, and then looking at the Hierophant, we could be talking about possibly a person in a major commitment involved. Now, I do think, though, you're done being, complacent and conforming. But because of the Two of Cups showing up, I think this is going to have to do, like I said, with a relationship for some of you. And it looks like things happen quickly, but I think some of you are waiting to act here because of communication. You're either not getting it or you're not doing it. And I do think that some of you have thought about acting on this and actually reaching out and communicating, but do you? I don't think you do. And, there's so much writing on this just between these two alone. I mean, like I said, the mental torture, and then with death, it's all about worrying that this situation is going to be over with for good, but are you going to actually be able to get over it if it is? Now, some of you may be looking to end a situation for good and not wanting to be committed anymore, which is another possibility. But because of what I'm looking at connected to the High Priestess, I think it's fear-based because of these two being connected. And looking at the High Priestess, it's everything that you're withholding. And again, with the Four of Pentacles, right? There is stability that's been found within the mental torture. That's what I feel like looking at this. And there's a fear that, if you act and say something, right, that a situation is going to be completely over with and you're going to have to go through that death cycle, and it's going to be something that's going to be with you probably for a little bit. And I do think that with the King of Cups, especially with Temperance coming out, you need to get control over the way that you're feeling about this, because it's like making a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, But like I can understand from Scorpio's perspective if we're talking about a relationship, right? That's not ever anything that's lighthearted when it comes to Scorpio. Now, as far as the clarifiers, I think it's fear of rejection. Looking at the Five of Pentacles. With Temperance, I'm telling you, you need to get that equilibrium back here, because you are looking at a relationship. And I do think that, it's being kept secret as far as like what you're thinking about this. You're not really speaking up about it. But there's like so much that's like riding on this right now. But like I said, this to me is more important than anything. You getting back to a place of balance, but then also paying attention to what your intuition is telling you, because that is your most powerful gift. And it will guide you where you need to go, instead of letting those thoughts take control. But wow, Scorp, and it shouldn't surprise me when we're talking about relationships, because a lot of times it's all or nothing, Now, as far as relationships go, I really do think that for singles with codependency and the Two of Wands, it's one of two things. It's either you need to be careful about like jumping into relationships and then being codependent on them emotionally, the other person, or being careful about attracting this. Because with the Two of Wands, you're talking about, you getting to know somebody. But it's a good thing, though, and that's what kind of throws me off. So I feel like Scorpio is the one that may be a little bit too dependent on knowing how the other person feels or wanting them to be just as all in as you are. And with the Two of Wands being there, it's a good thing. You're getting to know each other. There's flirting. It's great. Just be careful about the codependency thing. Now, as far as relationships, this could be the one in the Five of Swords. A double-edged sword for me looking at this one, because we are talking about the Five of Swords. Now, this could definitely be a situation here where you have met the one and you don't really care and you're wanting to get involved. Because again, the Five of Swords is overcoming inadequacies, but then it could just simply be that. Overcoming those things, overcoming those feelings of not being good enough, and they are the one, and you're getting into that. But then I also think that, maybe for some of you, you may be in a different situation because we're talking about couples. But again, that's just because we're looking at the Five of Swords. But anyway, it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be this. I don't think that this is a situation that you need to go through. You don't need to go through the death cycle. Now, for some of you, if you're looking to end something, stop thinking so much and stop bottling things up and just go ahead and say what you need to say and take the action that you are planning. But like I said, because of the Two of Cups and the Hierophant, that's big. That's a big major commitment with a relationship, But before you do anything right now, for those of you who are dealing with this, you have to open up to your intuition and get back to a place of balance before you act on anything.